somehow.
Yeah.
No, won't happen.
Yeah, I usually do. I usually give him the stink eye and he shuts up.
I try. I try. Oh, are we ready?
I think
Are we all
so.
set? I did talk to somebody from your team yesterday.
Okay.
Can't think of her name, and I want to say it's a her. I could be
Laura,
wrong.
Teresa, Jennifer.
No, let me look. But anyway, she goes, "Did you get samples?" And I'm like, "No, not yet." But she's going to send me samples, and then the good thing about that is we say you get the double dip on that because Laura.
About it.
Laura. So when we get the samples, then we put it back. Then at the beginning of a episode that we're doing, we'll make a cocktail or two or seven with the samples and talk about it on the show again. So it's like that'll bring you top of mind with people one more time.
Great.
And we'll remind them, hey, if you want to buy this stuff, go here.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Damn, skip it.
Love it.
Yeah.
After looking at all the different, we'll get into that.
That's what I said. I'm like, I got so many questions, but I'm not going to talk about it yet.
So I'm going to hit record. Let's get this thing rolling. 3, 2, 1. Folks, welcome to Toasting the Business. Lynn,
I'm on a streak, man.
you are. Oh, yes, they call her the street. As she shows
Okay,
up.
that's a certain
Anyway,
generational reference. Yeah.
but it was too late. He done been violated. Anyway, you remember that?
And
Apple,
so,
Apple, don't look.
why doesn't anybody streak anymore? Like, that was a huge deal.
I don't know. Maybe our guests could tell us when they got on it. It's from out in San Francisco. Maybe it's still a thing out there.
Yeah.
But
That was always a huge deal.
the weather.
Oh my gosh. It could not be any perfect. And the best part of it is there's no pollen flying yet. I know.
That's the only, we were talking about this the other day, Linda and I, and it's like, there's such a short window of time that you get to throw the windows open in the house. And it's like, you get it, and then it's gone.
Then
It's
the
just
yellow scrum comes in.
pounds of
I
pollen.
mean, it's disgusting when I can't, if I leave the window cracked open in the kitchen an inch for the day, and then I can come down and write my name on the counter in yellow
The
pollen.
yellow pollen.
It's
Thank you.
horrible.
Them Georgia pines.
I know. Well, they are pretty and they offer a lot, but yeah, that pollen's something else.
Oh, I learned something really cool about trees in the fall and why they change colors and everything, and it has to do with chlorophyll. But if you want to know, go look it up. It's a really, really, really cool thing, the way they protect themselves. So,
Yeah.
but we're going into spring, not fall, and we have the
I know.
spring ahead. Out of all the things, and this is the one thing, out of all the executive orders,
You right.
the 2000, could you not have just put that one at the top?
Right.
Is it in the pile? I just want to know if it's in the
And
pile.
where in the pile could it
Right.
be?
Could
Like
we
a
move it
little
up,
toward the top
please?
before the next, in 6 months, we got to do this again.
Get rid of daylight savings.
It's the hell trying to get out of bed in the mornings here.
Spring and what? No, I got no spring in my step now.
Alarm went off, and the next thing I know, it's 7:45. I got to start work at 8. I'm like, oopsie. All right.
Oh,
Anyway.
So we're going to spring ahead into our sponsors for the show. So let's
Okay.
take a moment and hear a word from them.
Sure.
And we are back.
We are.
We got a really good guest here.
I'm dying. I'm trying not to start firing off
I'll tell you,
questions.
when I got the email, could we be on the show?
Mhm.
And I started looking through it, and I was like, alcoholic beverages. And then I went, no, wait, no, not directly alcoholic beverages. I'm like, damn, where are my samples? But they make mixers for alcoholic and mocktails, which is becoming a big thing. A lot of people aren't drinking, but they still want to feel like they're part of the group. And, you miss out on that part. Like, I like the taste of this, that, and the other thing, but how do I make it without the alcohol and still enjoy it? So this is really, I was super excited when I got the email. I'm like, hell yes, please be on the show. So we've got Ken MacKenzie with us. Ken, welcome. I hope I didn't bust your bubble by talking about your product before you did.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's a thrill.
Good. And you're with Fresh and Victor.
I am.
All right. You're the CEO and founder. He's not just with. He's the papa.
Well, let's just jump off the cliff here, shall we?
Yeah.
Because I want to know this. I was reading your bio, and you used to be in the tequila business.
I did.
I want to know about that. I really like, is it a cutthroat? But because there's so many different brands of tequila, and I've said this before on episodes, like every other celebrity seems to have a branded tequila these days. Why?
Mhm.
Why? But I mean, when you were in the business, what was it like? And yeah, give us a little bit. Pontificate for a moment, shall you?
Yeah. It was very exciting, and I'll tell you why. I think that we probably grew up in somewhat of a similar time frame. And because of that, my preconceived notion of tequila in the 70s and 80s was, hey, it's shots
Mm-hmm.
and it's a miserable next day. That's about the extent. Yeah.
Salt on the hand, lime in hand, and the shot, and
And that's the extent of it. Yeah.
Get it over with and hope for the best later on.
right.
And so it was an interesting genesis for me because I really fell backwards into this. I had no designs or intentions to be a tequila person per se, aside from drinking it. I was really fortunate growing up here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I fell in love with a girl from Guadalajara, Mexico, and knew that she was, after studying, going to go back home to Guadalajara, and so realized that, hey, there was no future here. We were really inseparable friends. And when she did end up going back, I realized very quickly, within a day or two, wow, I have a huge void in my life.
Oh.
And went straight to, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, as opposed to, I want to hold your hand. Luckily, she felt the same way. And so I caught a plane the next weekend to go down to Guadalajara, and I ended up staying. I was looking for investment opportunities, or what do I do here,
right,
to make a living, knowing that isn't everybody already doing it, and probably doing it a lot better than I could.
It sounds like a 70s rock song, doesn't it? Met a girl from Guadalajara, found love, jumped on a plane, and here I am. It's classic. I'm going to grab some lyrics. So you go ahead.
Well, my parents were of the same mindset as far as saying, did you say Guatemala? And I said, Guadalajara, Mexico. It was a real departure. It was something that not only wasn't planned, but I really had no footprint in Mexico at all. And so it was going from Northern California to saying, hey, this is where I want to be spending my time. And now I need to rationalize doing so. How am I going to make a living down here?
Mm-hmm.
From the investment opportunity side, it really becomes that exercise, that critical thinking exercise of, isn't already everybody doing it? And for me, whether it was tech or, if you're in Tlaquepaque, art or, jewelry or clothing or textile, whatever. Yeah, I didn't add value to any of that. And so it became frustrating. Luckily in Mexico, it's such a social culture that very quickly, I'd say the first or second week, her family really culminated around, what do you know about tequila? And I realized very quickly, next to nothing that you want to hear about. It's quite the Epicurean spirit with, the raw ingredient agave being in the ground for 8 to 12 years, soaking up a lot of mineral content. It became very clear to me what we were experiencing in the United States in the mid 90s versus how Mexico drank tequila had a prodigious difference.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between a good, like a nice añejo and a blanco, and a huge difference, which I didn't know that much about it until we had one guest on, and I got to drink some very fine tequila. And I was like, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
This is something.
It's not gut rock, right? It's like, it's good. It's really good. Yeah.
So you learn that. And I that one thing you mentioned agave too, because it's become such a thing. And I know I'm kind of sidetracking, but there is a difference between agave when you said it's 12 years old, it comes to like its full growth, versus some of these companies who are cutting this stuff now and at a younger age because they're trying to mass produce it and sell it the juice. And there's a big damn difference, isn't there?
Yeah, it's really predicated on sugar content. You want it to fully mature to the point where the Brix level is at a desired point where when you're actually harvesting and then going to fermentation, crushing and going to fermentation, you're really capitalizing on the full maturity of the sugars. It's easy to cut corners or to say, hey, we want to accelerate said process. And I've seen everything over the course of the last several decades where it's gone from really oftentimes a traditional method of we're harvesting the agave and then putting it in brick ovens with steam for 36 to 40 hours versus, hey, we're going to pour chemicals on this stuff and see how quickly we can get it to dissolve.
Wow.
So you're a gringo down in Guadalajara who knows jack about tequila, and the family's like, you want to be with this young lady? You're going to learn this business. Was this kind of how it was? Or are you good at plowing fields? I mean, that's your two choices.
No, I have a lot of respect for Jimadores. That is a tough job. Yeah, I think it was more inquisitive on my part, saying, where do we have contact where I can really learn something and figure out if I can use some business acumen to bridge the gaps between the two countries. One thing that I really figured out quickly was the disconnect between US and Mexico are very different countries. Mexico is much more of a cash-based society of what can you do for me today? Whereas the US loves to look at 7-year performas and credit and how are we going to build this into, exit strategy, if you will. And so what I figured out relatively quickly is I had no sense of how Mexico viewed tequila. They were very much utilizing it, much like Americans use vodka. And what I was, one of the first things that came across to me is, hey, when we go up to the US, what we see is there's shots and there's margaritas, but there's absolutely no in between. And here it's nothing but in between. We're not doing shots. We're not, a margarita is more or less of a cocktail invention that isn't traditional to us per se. And so what they were really looking at is the business opportunity of how do we create a mainstream appeal or broad market opportunity for an Epicurean spirit that truly is Epicurean, as opposed to the rot gut that you mentioned of, hey, can we just get this over with and then have the repercussions the next day?
Right.
Lynn is a fan of tequila, by the way.
I do. I like it. Yeah.
You like your Topo Chico.
Like Topo Chico with a lime and that's totally American, but I've taken a flight of tequila and it was quite nice. I felt to the point of I was drinking wine almost. Not to that extent, but it was very you could taste the minerals and the differences between each one that I was drinking, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, you'll see 1,300 plus distinct characteristics in just a glass of Blanco.
Whoa, wow, 1,300? I don't even think I have a vocabulary that big.
Like 3, I think. But it's I got dirt, tequila, and whatever.
More tequila.
No, I mean I get it, but that's so. I have a question though. Was the family involved in the tequila industry, or were they just thinking you'd be a good person to get into the tequila industry when you were down there?
So luckily for me, the family had some involvement in the tequila industry, and so they were able to make some really warm introductions. And what I found as a sweeping generalization is a lot. Well, that's maybe unfair. I was going to say a lot. When people had previously gone down there was penchant for saying, hey, we want to start this huge business and it's going to be the next huge thing. And they wouldn't never come back, or, it would be very short-lived. So there was a trust factor of, hey, this guy's actually here. He is sincerely trying to learn as much as he can. Because that was my first intention, was just learning the facets of the business to see if there was a vertical that could be created between the agave growing, the production, the exportation, the importation, and then what it takes up here. And as you guys know, if you look at the US system, the 3-tier system, you're not only importing, but you're also distributing to go to on-premise and off-premise retail.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the initial questions I got, which I wasn't really prepared to answer at the time, was, hey, if we're making a liter in the, granted, this was back in the mid 90s, if we're making a liter of 100% agave tequila, really good 100% agave tequila for about $2.20 a liter, and we're go up to San Antonio or San Francisco or New York, and I'm looking at the bottle cost, and they're charging $65 for said bottle. Who gets all that money? What's
Right.
going on?
Yeah, right,
Yep.
right. Yeah.
That was an opportunity to explain that vertical of, hey, it's leaving here, and then you have taxes and duties that are federal, and then you have to deal with the state, and then you're dealing with the distributor, the wholesaler, and then it's going into a marketing system of how is this different from other tequilas. And so there's actually a lot that goes into it. And it was a fascinating exercise in critical thinking for me, as far as I could really function as a consultant for quite a while.
Mhm.
It was a good business to be in. However, my wife, she was my girlfriend as I went down there. We've been married 26 years now. My wife's always been smarter than I am. And one of the things that she pointed out from a 30,000 foot view is, why are you showing people how to do this when we could be doing this ourselves?
Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense.
So
Yeah.
how long did you do it yourself?
So we had a
Still
really
do
good,
it.
yeah, in the 90s, in the mid to late 90s, it was a lot of consulting and a lot of just figuring out how to show people how to get into distribution and how to effectively manage a brand.
Mhm.
Or vice versa, from the US side, how to go down to Mexico and actually function if you wanted to create a brand. We started in 99, 2000 with our own tequila brands and had, a good run all the way through 2015 or so. So we had a good 15 years where we were creating brands and having fun bringing them to market. One thing that really came up over the course of time that was both gratifying and also just something that happens when an industry grows up on a whole is Americans started to understand 100% agave tequilas much better and had a better grasp or acceptance of, hey, this isn't, your grandfather's rock cut. This is actually something to be coveted to a certain degree. And so we watched as it went from, and I hate to date myself, but when I got in, there wasn't Patron and there wasn't, all these huge monster brands. I mean, we go back to like Bob Hope and, Bing Crosby with Herradura, and, Porfidio was brand new with the cactus in the middle of the bottle. It was pretty early on. So from that perspective, I've watched it really morph into something where it's a somewhat saturated category, and you have a lot of tequilas being registered with the CRT down in Mexico with the government branch. Last year alone in 2024, there was over 500 new registered marks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And 200 of them were for celebrities. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. It's just something that sticks in my craw all the time. It's like, do you actually know your brand? I mean, there are a couple out there, but way back when you said it, like when you were down there in the early 90s, the first person I remember was Sammy Haggard.
Yeah.
Who had a tequila brand. Like, it became well known that he had a tequila brand. And
Cabo Wabo.
Yeah, Cabo Wabo. It was pretty good. And then, of course, Clooney and what's his face, they had theirs. Bryan Cranston and and Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad a couple of years ago, they came out with one as well, and they've been pushing it. And it's like, I don't know, guys. I mean, you go in the market, right, and you see all these, like you said, the market's growing so much, and it's nice to see the growth of something. Like, it's growing up. Oh, isn't that nice? But how do you pick and choose the right ones? And when I had, you weren't here for that episode, but Tequila de la Gente.
Yeah.
That is so good. And that's an añejo. And that is just a straight up sipping tequila
Mhm.
that you can, that's what you drink it
Just
with. Like,
enjoy it, yeah.
and Megan was here that night and she wound up making me a Paloma with it.
Mm,
I think, and I was like, oh shit, I'm so sorry. He goes, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. But trying to learn that pricing, he
Mhm.
goes, we're thinking it's going to be $200 for a bottle of this. I think when I need to go back and look, but I think I saw where they priced it out at something like $85
Yeah,
for a
okay.
bottle, which is dynamite. I mean,
Mhm.
it is worth
Approachable.
200.
Right,
No, it's approachable at 200. You're not missing
Okay,
out for that
okay.
one.
all
But
right.
so what I want to know, sorry, you go down to Guadalajara, you get into the business, you become a consultant, and everything that you're talking about it makes sense. What the heck did you do before that you actually had anything a leg to stand on to be like, I could be a consultant. I understand the vertical markets of any industry. I understand marketing. Or were you learning all this on the fly? What did you do before that like you had a base of knowledge to move forward with on this?
Yeah,
Or you just a bullshitter?
no, I grew up with a father that taught econ. And so,
Wow.
Oh, gee,
Boom.
there you go.
yeah, one of the things that was instilled in me pretty early on, I was writing essays for things as a young child, here's my point of view and here's the supporting factors to it. It really was him teaching me how to identify, do you add value? And you need to be able to tell yourself no. You need to be able to walk away from a situation when I'm not the right guy. And I think that that's really difficult for people, especially if it's ego driven. If you feel like, hey, I can do this, I can do anything. It's a real mistake in judgment, because people need to take. I had the luxury of being able to learn from really good people. And when you're transparent, or I try to be as transparent as possible, I was able to go in with a lot of humility and say, you know what? I think anything that I knew about this was absolutely wrong. And please teach me. I implore you. I want to know. And so I had the luxury of spending that time and getting to know the industry as well as I got to know it. And that was a real blessing, in the sense that I was able to go out with all the knowledge of kind of how both sides were working. And when you're just in a proximity like I was, a lot of the people in the States were calling me just going, hey, what brand should we be betting on? Who owns their agave versus who's buying on the open market? Who's getting divorced or is in like turmoil right now? We should look the other way. These types of questions. And that's just, luckily being there and being engaged.
Okay. I could just hear the people up in New York. Oh, hang on. I know a guy. I'm gonna call Ken. He's got all the answers.
Yeah,
He's got all
the answer man.
Yeah.
So in 2015, you part from the market.
We evolved. It's an interesting thing. I think that the tequila will always have, a really special place in my heart, because I'm so close to it and understand it relatively well. Whereas what I was really being asked time in and time out, as I was going around and doing these tequila educational seminars or introductions at distributorships or big national accounts, or for private, functions or events, one thing that came up over and over again was, okay, we get, we're in lockstep about 100% agave tequila and its benefits. Great tequila, fantastic. We like it. How do you make really good cocktails quickly? And that I really was taken aback by that the first time it was asked. And then as I was being asked 3, 4, or 5 times a week, it became a real relevant question to answer. I came to realize, and one of my friends at one of the distributorships in North Texas, in Grand Prairie, Texas, had come to me and said, hey man, that was a great, we really learned a lot in 40 minutes. Thank you very much for doing that. When you built that cocktail that you did, do you know it took you about 4.5 minutes?
Yeah.
And I said, I wasn't timing myself, but yeah, it takes a little while because, you know, I'm squeezing limes, you're blending agave nectar and water, you're, you know, doing the things you have to do. And he said, what would be really useful, since no one's going to do that, is if you could do that in 20 seconds, we appreciate it, because no national account's going to take the time to, you know, build that from the ground up. The other thing I realized, you guys, was I had never really attended one of my own dinner parties. I wasn't sitting and eating with the guests. I was behind the bar most of the evening,
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
making these cocktails one by one. And I was fine. Everybody would come to the bar and they'd want repeated drinks. So I was talking to everybody, but wasn't really sitting and eating with them and kind of enjoying the evening in the same way. There was a real void there of, as we grew up, I think you guys are going to be, you know, you're in a different part of the country, but at least on the West Coast, mixers were really given a bad name. Like high fructose corn syrup, neon green, cloudy, like you default to, I guess that's what's here. I'll grab that because it's
And
easy.
the flavors are off.
Yeah.
in a
It
big
smells
way.
weird.
You ever had that? Nobody knows. Like, I've tried. A Manhattan is a wonderful cocktail.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
But I've tried a lot of different mixers for
Yeah.
the pre-mix, and it's like, no,
Yeah,
no,
still
no.
not.
Even
Got
old
it.
fashions are the same way. An old fashioned, how can you screw up well, the place we went for dinner last weekend, the bartender screwed up an old fashioned in a big way. First of all, the glass was like 3/4 full with ice.
Mhm.
It's an old fashioned.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. That's it.
Blast
3,
off.
2, 1, or 1, 2, 3. 1 part simple syrup, 2 parts bourbon, and 3 shakes of bitters. You can't F it up that, and they destroyed it. But anyway, this is keep going, because I mean, Lynn comes to my house for parties.
Yeah.
And usually, I like you, I love to entertain. I love to give to people and
Right.
make you feel good about being there. It's like
Mhm.
that giving part of my side. But I also learned that I want to be part of everything.
Yeah.
And so I'll make pictures of margaritas. I've made those before.
Made sangria.
Sangria is
Mhm.
usually just a go-to, because it's like,
That's
I don't
easy.
have to make cocktails.
Right.
Somebody else. Anyway, you're probably in the same boat and you're having these light bulb moments. This is awesome. I'm going to shut up.
No, it's a great, you set me up so well. It's exactly that. It's you have these aha moments where you're like, hey, I think all these people are basically telling me the exact same thing. There's something missing here. Can it be done? And if it can be done, why hasn't somebody done it yet that's smarter than I am? Because they're certainly out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it really became a challenge almost of, hey, if we know what goes into these drinks, like you just illustrated so brilliantly, with an old fashioned, you know, as a consumer, exactly what it should be.
Right.
You know what you like and what you want to receive based on your, you know, you're paying your bill. So you know what how you'll be satisfied. So it's the same thing here. How do we create something that people would really genuinely enjoy for the quality?
Mm-hmm.
They'd say, oh man, this is one of the best drinks I've ever had. And we'd be able to get to, you know, the mass market, the broad market. And what I found is a sweeping generalization is it's really difficult to do that on a refrigerated basis, where you're cold chain, because you're fresh, you're cold pressed, you're using no preservatives at all. And so like in our circumstance, I refuse to use preservatives. I want you to feel like you're doing it, you know, from scratch each and every time. But I want to take the work away from you having to figure out the citrus base, the sweeteners, the, you know, mint or ginger or whatever herbs you're using. How do we effectively do that and commercialize it?
That's a big process that you came up with there, though, because you just said you want to do everything fresh. Again, you're in the kitchen or you're at your bar and you're squeezing the limes fresh, and because you didn't prep ahead, you didn't squeeze out a whole gallon of limes and everything else, but because you want that fresh cocktail. That's a shit ton of work. But that was I'm guessing that was one of your bases of, if nobody's done this, we're going to do it, but we want to do it where it's high quality. And is that right? Is that where like that was a baseline for you? It's got to be high quality, fresh ingredients, and then we're going to build it from there and figure out how to, if we can do this.
100% right. And also a little scary, because the way you just described it is nobody else has done it. And that goes back to my dad, right? Hey, if no one else has done it, what's the reason for that? And are you really going to be the one to crack the code on this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's with all the love and encouragement and belief in me that he's my biggest supporter, but he's also got to look at both sides of the coin and say, hey, let's go through this critical thinking process of, what are you taking on here? Is it Sisyphus just rolling this boulder up a mountain that can't be,
Yep.
There's no other side to it. It's just up vertical. And it kind of was. It was an interesting process because, we could figure out in our kitchen easily. It's simple, 4 ingredients, right? Like you can nail this each and every time on a small scale.
Mm-hmm.
How do you titrate that up to a commercial run, which is still very craft? I mean, I'm just talking, guys, like when we were doing initial productions, we were doing merely 150, 200 gallons. I mean, not a lot. This isn't mass produced.
Yeah.
Of course, over time, we've scaled this, but the exact same production capabilities and quality, that's what we take so seriously. And so in order to do that, what I was faced with was a huge backlash from the industry saying, this is exactly what we want. However, can you make it shelf stable? Can you make it last 2 years? Can
Right.
you and I said, no, not with it still being good. There's a give and take here, right? And so what you're faced with is, okay, Ken, sure. But then it's going to need to be cold chain. It's going to be refrigerated distribution and logistics.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to now suddenly, in an industry that's so used to the, previous players of, hey, this will outlast a nuclear blast with the cockroaches. You're going to have code dates, and the industry is not that. Here's the thing with the wine and spirits industry, it's one of the most amazing sectors to be in. But if you're used to ambient temperature products like spirits and wine and beer, where it comes in at room temperature, the second that suddenly somebody tells you have to deal with cold and code dates,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, well, not me. I mean, if you're going to do all the work, then we're thrilled to have it, but we're not going to change our behavior or ways. And so we really face kind of pioneering a new category, if you will.
You definitely
a
are.
new category.
Think
Yeah.
about that, because this is,
And I'm thinking a very specific niche as well. I don't see this going to Why Nots down the street,
it's
that old blowout bar or whatever.
where's your
Yeah.
where's your vertical market for
Yeah.
this? Because you're figuring out how to get this stuff to probably have as long of a shelf space as possible, or how far can we stretch it before it expires, right? Because you got these are fresh ingredients that you're dealing with, and inside there they're doing their own little chemical things, because you're working with fruits and some vegetables and herbs and all that shit's like doing its own stuff inside.
And then you
there.
have kombucha when you're all done.
Yeah.
So you have that, and then you're like, okay, well, we finally figured that out. Now, who the hell are we going to market this to? Where do we go? What vertical are we going to?
Mm-hmm.
And do we have another branch to go?
Yeah.
What do you? Oh
My head
gosh,
hurts thinking
my
about
head
it.
hurts. I hope. What did your?
I think
you
I'm
said
gonna
your-
figure it out.
I know, but it's probably his wife. He said his wife's smarter. She
Oh.
probably came up with the answer. And why are we not talking to her and we're talking to you? I mean, that's because she's
what a waste of
smarter.
time.
She knows not to be on the vegan podcast with you guys.
Well, I think the good news for us is coming from the tequila business, what I knew to be a universal truth is what we were working against was fermentation. You don't want that bottle to ferment.
Right.
So short of us putting it up against a heater or putting it in, the direct Texas sunlight, As long as it's kept refrigerated, my hypothesis was through crushed citrus and it being so acidic, it'll be very stable kept cold.
Okay.
Because we're not adding alcohol to it, so it's not eating away the other ingredients. So that was my hypothesis. However, until you actually test that against something and have a control, you're
drink it.
Yeah.
See what happens.
It's still guesswork. And so, the honest truth is, in the beginning, it was really, really hard. It was really hard because I was marking the bottles at 42 days from date of production. And I probably wasn't even getting it through the distribution vertical until like day 2021. So
Like a weekend on the shelf at the end.
Yeah.
Not to be overly maudlin, but I was probably pouring out as much as I was selling at one point in the beginning. And that was hard. That was difficult. That felt very, what would I say? It really felt very demeaning to have such a amazing tasting product that everybody raved about, but yet I couldn't figure out how to get it to them effectively. And that's what I really had to really work against. And so for us, luckily also being in the, Northern California, we were doing our shelf life studies at UC Davis. And I was saying, here's what I think. Can we prove it? Because, I know it's very stable from having it in the garage fridge. So we were able to elongate the shelf life because, as we were saying about fermentation, as long as it's kept cold at 38 degrees, 42 degrees, it'll hold really well. What I find as an industry person, like anything that's fresh, is although it won't go bad like dairy or something, it'll really start to fade like most things that are fresh. And so, I noticed this after 90 days that, hey, the citrus isn't popping as much. Not bad at all. I have everybody else telling me, hey, you're nuts. This is great. But we do market to say, hey, this is the best window to use it in.
Right. I want to know, you just said, you mentioned using UC Davis to test this. Was this something that you knew that the college, for whatever department, did this to help their students? It's like, well, we're going to hand this off to the chemistry department or this food and blah, blah, blah department. How did you find out about that? Because I think there may be some people are like, I need some help.
I'm stuck. I don't know
on
where
my
to
market
go.
or test these products, and whoever thought maybe a university could help you for kid can get the damn credit for school.
Yeah.
How'd that work out? I want to know.
Yeah. So, it's really interesting. A lot of these places, a lot of the learning institutions have privatized labs, and they're, oftentimes can be for profit, but they have the equipment there. They have the knowledge and researchers. They have all these different things. And so the kinds of things I want to do, quite frankly, as far as testing, is very mundane. There's nothing like, hey, we're sending somebody into space. It's more like, hey, yeah, we can handle that relatively easily. And in the tequila business, when you have the distilleries, you always have labs on site. So actually, as part of the distillery, because you're constantly checking against benchmarks and how the pH balances and how much things are maturing and what the alcohol contents are, so you can cut them down with water to get to 40%, and all the different facets of the business that we have to do. You have to have that on site because you're not going to be sending that stuff off.
You could send that off to any college lab. They would help out with their tequila testing, I'm sure.
So it's just
the results you want for the reports, but
yeah, it's a fortunate thing. Like, hey, it's really great to have it close by, because in that regard, you can, constantly have your pulse on what's happening. You can make sure that your assumptions are correct, and you can continue to evolve the brand as you come out with new flavors.
That's good. So you're figuring this out. You're figuring out how long it'll stay fresh enough to your standards on the market. The other part, you're saying between 38 and 42 degrees, Well, you have to make sure that when it leaves your facility and is being driven in this truck, you know, which has to be a refrigerated truck, right?
Yes.
That, and the distributors you're working with, the temperature is that damn cold. Otherwise,
Yeah,
the product shows up, and whose fault is it? You know?
Yeah. And that's part of the learning curve as well. We call that cold chain custody.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's interesting because my background is more in the spirits. And so I'm used to dealing with a certain set of distributors, whereas this doesn't play in the same playground per se. This is much more an item on premise that is akin to food service distributors like the Cisco's and the US Foods and the Performance Food Groups of the world, as opposed to the traditional wine and spirits distributors that are used to delivering things at ambient temperature. And, when you think about spirits portfolios and how brilliantly our stuff goes with that stuff, the natural inclination is to say, hey, let's get it on the same truck. Luckily, having friends in the industry, they were saying, hey, you know what? The honest truth is we're really not set up for this. And we will leave it on a pier outside a casino in Las Vegas for hours at a time. Like,
oh, wow. Oh, boy. Yeah.
How did you figure? Okay, so what was you've got your product. Who was your initial customer? Like, this is our avatar. What you thought was, this is our customer. And did you stay with that, perfect customer, or after you started putting it out in the market, did you realize, oh shit, no, over here, this is our actual customer who's going to buy it the most? I mean, how did that happen and evolve?
You know what? So there was an assumption that was made on our part, which was correct. However, COVID happened, and that really changed things.
Of course it did.
It should have been everybody's home by then. We're not going out.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
Drinking was up in home by 420%, and suddenly it was a brave new world.
That was it.
Well, from what I could gather in my own neighborhood.
People knocking on Ken's door. Do you have some
need a
fresh
mixer?
Victor?
I need some mixers.
Why aren't your people working? We'll go press that shit in the factory for you. Come on.
It's a really interesting thing because, as you guys know all too well, where you probably get the most bang for your buck or you get the most brand equity is through off-premise. So Epicurean grocery, liquor stores like Total Wine, those are great places for us to live and breathe because you guys see it. It's kind of a first to category proposition. And so you see it and then you realize, hey, this will pair really well with anything I have at home or I'm buying today. And it's really easy to use. It's preservative free. It's low calorie. It's all this great stuff. And in that space, we even get a lot of the people that work there kind of hooked on it, where they're saying, have you seen this stuff yet? This is really cool. You might want to check this out real quick. However, there's also a real educational facet to that, because if you've never seen it before, you look at our brand and you go, why is that llama on there? And what's going on? What am I supposed to do with this stuff? Is it just really expensive juice? Or, what did I miss? I woke up today and now this is here. So the on-premise as an assumption lends itself brilliantly to what we're doing, because really what we're doing is we're consistently providing exactly what a bar, restaurant, casino, cruise ship, nightclub, resort, what everybody needs to serve there for consistent high quality drinks or cocktails or mocktails. They use it right away. That comes to them, they're using it that same week because they're serving it to customers. So you have a split, and it's very much like this in tequila too. You probably go 70% on-premise, 30% off-premise. The thing with us is it's kind of a new category, and so we went to test it at Epicurean Retail when we launched, and it worked really well. But then we pivoted very quickly to a very high percentage on-premise. I'd say 85% 100% on premise because they were using it right away. And we were able to get it into a lot of places quickly in the sense that there was a real need for it.
Let me ask you a quick question while you're talking. On premise, you're talking about restaurants and bars and hotel. Okay. Because I know people are probably driving in their car listening to this and go, what is on premise?
Yeah.
So continue.
On premise is anywhere where you're going to actually drink it at that location. So you're absolutely right. Restaurants, bars, nightclubs, casinos, hotels, resorts, amusement parks, anywhere you could think of where people are serving you drinks and you're paying for them there. That, is a really great way to expand the brand, to get it to the industry, to get it to people in the know, to say, hey, this stuff really works well and efficiently. I'm even able to narrow my distribution footprint because I'm not having to deal with limes and lemons and oranges and mint and ginger.
Did that work for you?
It worked extremely well.
So
but
I have a question. We don't want to hear your butt first before I ask my question. But
nearly March 12th, 2020, any on-premise distributor I had called to say, if it's not on the road, don't put it on the road yet. We'd have no idea what's going to happen.
where it's going. Oh, damn COVID.
Today's the 5-year anniversary of that nightmare.
Is it? I remember sitting over there
Mhm.
in my office going, I just signed to expand my office. And
That's right.
yeah, it's kind
A
of,
lot of people did. Remember? We've got a couple friends who did that. Yep.
I said,
Mhm.
let's
But
do
it
it.
all worked out.
We're going to do it.
It all worked
But
out.
what I want to, so side thing on premise, which it's brilliant because you're speeding up the making of a cocktail, which, as we said earlier, some bartenders can F up a cocktail,
So easily.
the simplest things. And then it's all the show and the shake and the whatever. And you're like, oh my God, I'm sitting
It
here.
tastes like
All I
caca.
want is a freaking gin and tonic. And I got to watch you flip and spin and shake this thing for 2.5 minutes. And I'm seeing the tickets from the wait staff piling up as well. And everybody's waiting for their drinks while they're making this 3 or 4 minute cocktail when they could do it in 20 seconds with Fresh Victor. But they're like, the show that I'm putting on. And you're like, and it's not a show. I don't mean like
Yeah.
the movie Cocktail.
Right.
But just shaking it for a good 40 seconds because that's what I learned when I went to bartending school.
So we don't take any of the theater away from that.
Okay.
I think the good news for us is what we're basically doing is we're supplying the acidity, the citrus and the bricks, the sweetener, in a complete mixture where you're already now ahead of the game 4 or 5 ingredients in. So there's already a level of complexity to this,
Right.
where you can be proud and say, hey, I'm not cutting any corners here. This stuff is being, blended every week. However, I'm also not paying somebody 2 to 3 hours a day to crush all the limes, to, blend all the agave nectar, et cetera. And so for us, it can be anything from the bar itself. We'll put Fresh Victor in a storm pour and basically mix it with the tequila or the rum or the gin or the vodka or whatever, the spirit of your choice or whatever we're doing here, and shake it up. And you're still getting all of the theater in one place, but we're really addressing flavor profiles that we know from an on-premise and off-premise perspective are not easy to use, such as jalapeno, such as prickly pear, such as pineapple and ginger, these sorts of things.
I love all your ingredients except cucumber. Sorry. It's
like
just me
cilantro.
personally.
It's like, I don't like cucumber either. It's like some people do not like cilantro, and it's like one of those kind of.
I'm going to tell you about my cilantro vodka experience after the
Oh, God, that sounds horrible.
But yeah, your stuff. Tell it. Oh man. All right, keep going on track. Then we're going to let you just expound about all the delicious flavors you have out there.
Yeah.
But you have this in. Okay, You're talking about freshness of fruit and everything else, which is seasonal. You got to follow it because the crops aren't there all the time. You're sourcing different types of limes, lemons, ginger. What'd you say? Pomegranate, prickly pear. You got to figure all this out. And you have to make sure it's quality that matches, because you've set a high bar for Fresh Victor, haven't you? This isn't some run-of-the-mill shit juices that you're just pouring in there. This is all fresh ingredients that you guys are cold pressing to make the highest quality cocktail mixers possible for the market, right?
Correct. So we really have to live and breathe by that. We have to stand by what we're saying. And, a lot of this, especially being a new category, can be, it can make people hesitate from the standpoint of, we really got to figure out if this guy can keep the consistency. If it really is, this is like a real thing, or it's a unicorn. I mean, which is it? And I'm really happy to tell you guys that, through a lot of diligence and being able to be persistent and really holding ourselves to a high standard, we've been able to keep the exact same consistency from a pH level, from a balancing level, also from like a Scoville level on the heat of the jalapeno, on all the different things that we have to do to ensure that every batch, week over week, month over month, year over year, is exactly like the previous one.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's amazing. How did you come up with, I noticed you have multiple types of mixers, flavor profiles. What was the decision making behind that? I mean, there's some obvious ones. I know. Well,
just said you're going to make this. And
we need to have a tequila base. We need to have a, I don't know, mojito base. We need to.
What mixes with it for us?
Right. How did you go out and survey the market? How did this work for you?
So part of this was a trial and error, just being in the tequila business, knowing what worked and what accounts we're asking for. And so we knew unconditionally that, we had a 5-year, 6-year stint in Austin, for example, and staples of menus, 3 citrus margaritas, jalapeno margaritas or rumritas, prickly pear, tequila long drinks. So we knew those flavor profiles went over extremely well, but we also had seen on a fairly regular basis that they would come and go because there wasn't that stability of knowing that they had the staff to nail it, or that they could source the ingredients necessarily. Mm-hmm. And so part of this business proposition really became, can we really put a promise out there of consistency, reliability, ability to make sure that once you engage us, that we're going to be there for you? And that's probably the most thrilling thing for me of all of this is like, hey, we're offering something that's not only a real service in the sense that operationally people need this, but also that we can maintain that promise of quality and that we're able to go out with flavors that people genuinely want or need.
Okay.
I'm good with that. I like that.
Yeah.
And it's across the board now. I know you keep saying tequila and people are like, what? I don't drink tequila.
I only drink bourbon. I only drink gin.
You go to the website, go to freshvictor.com. It's freshvictor.com, right?
Freshvictor.com.
Seriously. And there's click the one thing on the freshvictor.com. Recipes.
Oh.
And you get the book, and all the different recipes and all the different types of liquor, not just tequila, that are on there.
Yeah.
It's like this one goes with vodka, this one goes with gin. Nothing goes with scotch on the page, folks. I mean, scotch is its own category, so don't try to get excited. It's somebody's finally come up with something that goes with scotch.
Pineapple and ginger.
Huh?
My family came over from Scotland, so you bet. The pineapple and ginger is
ginger with my scotch and to wash down the haggis.
Haggis will gag us.
Oh my goodness, the haggis will gag us.
But I mean, I think about this. I'm like, my brain's in gear right now, and I'm thinking, case in point, our pool is outside of a walkout basement, and to go running up the stairs to the kitchen to get the lime, to get the, you know, and if I had this in our basement refrigerator,
And you
near
will.
the pool, and I will, it'd be like, guest, would you like a, yeah, here, let me make it for you right here. It's just very convenient.
Awesome.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
question.
Do you distribute across the United States or just only on the West Coast-ish?
We do. We distribute across the United States. And yeah, you guys brought up a really good point, you know, and you know, it stings a little bit, but we keep bringing up how smart my wife is compared to myself. She was
At first.
Good man.
We just brought it up
Good man.
again and again.
it comes back. It's a recurring theme. She really was the one that, you know, said it would be incredibly short-sighted to call this a margarita mix initially.
Yeah.
You know, because your mind as a tequila guy goes right there. Is, hey, this is crushed, limes, and we're doing this all in a certain way. But the reality is, when you're using fresh ingredients, when you're using the kind of stuff that you guys see on our website, it really, you know, is perfect for any spirit: vodka, rum, gin, tequila, whiskey, bubbles for mimosas, beer for shandies and micheladas. I mean, you can really do a myriad of different things with this. And then, as you had stated earlier in the podcast, one of the really fascinating things for me is being in this industry. A lot of people over the course of the time kind of reel back on drinking or stop altogether. It can be for health reasons. It can be for overindulgence. It can be for pregnancy. I mean, there's so many reasons that people don't drink. A lot of the younger people never started. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons to want to address that. And for me, watching this over 15 years, what I really unconditionally saw, was the people that weren't drinking were really relegated to a bottle of Coca-Cola or a bottle of water. Like, there wasn't a whole lot in between there, and it felt weird.
You know, it's kind of like when I went to, you know, I love Guinness.
Right.
But way back when they had Guinness in a bottle versus pulling a draft.
Right.
And the bottle was not, I don't even know what Guinness was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It was,
Yeah.
And then they came up with the
can,
little, they had because it had a nitrous
Right.
pack.
The widget.
The widget.
Yep.
And it was like, oh my goodness, now I can buy this or go into a bar that served it, and it was fine. I could drink a Guinness. Except every time you switch to Boddingtons. But anyway, this could be a 4-hour podcast.
Oh yeah.
I have so many questions I want to ask you. You talk about marketing and distribution and the whole thing with the llama, and so, but I have two, and we're getting toward the end. First is about the llama. How did you brought it up first? So the llama is the mascot of Fresh Victor?
The llama, the Fresh Victor is meant to be enjoyed and celebrated. And so it's really the really foundation of Fresh Victor is bringing people together, right? You know, that's what's important to my family, is that you're able to come together at any table, any swimming pool, any restaurant, and really feel like you're enjoying something together as a community, as people that have, similar ways of wanting to connect. And the llama is such a social pack animal and just so adorable in a lot of ways. And what we found being in Peru, in Lima, there's these Michelin star restaurants, and there's these 13-course meals that extend 3.5 hours, and you're just in heaven because you're like, what, this is just the best thing ever. And then you'd watch floods of llamas just come right up to like basically the kitchen, and they would off-pack freshly picked fruit that they were literally taking straight to the sink and washing and muddling. And it would get, I would say, okay, that was just there 5 minutes ago, and now it's in my glass right in front of me. It was this very warm feeling of this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And growing up, when I did, you look at the iconic mascots or the things that you recognize unconditionally, a really puerile example, Tony Tiger. Like, you're not going to mistake what that is. That's not motor oil. I wanted the same for Fresh Victor. Like, hey, I'm with friends. I'm having the best time ever, and there's the llama.
Party llama.
The party llama.
Yeah,
Just be careful because llamas do spit.
they do. They get a
So
little
just
Hopefully,
persnickety.
spit Fresh Victor. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got the, I love the llama on your website. It's so cool.
Oh, thank you.
That is the
That's
best.
great.
My other question is you've mentioned critical thinking a few times on this episode, and like we're getting to, we've got this idea, or we're moving forward with this, and so we're going to go back to critical thinking, and I'm assuming it's a skill. But how do you address that? Is that something as basic as we're going to do a little T-chart? Here's the pros, here's the cons, and let's move forward. And once it balances out, we decide we're going to move forward with this, or we're going to cast it aside. You bring it up each time. What is your exercise that you use for your critical thinking as you approach a different subject or whatever it might be?
Knowing that you don't have all the answers out of the gate, I think it's really easy to mistake intuition or, gut thinking for absolute truths. And sometimes, especially with a new category or something that you're trying to bring to the market for the first time, you don't have all the answers because they haven't been established yet. And so it's a learning process, and you need to know when to take a step back and say, hey, am I getting this wrong? Or is this the right road to go down? You need to solicit advice from advisors and people on your team that you really trust to say, hey, can I ask you really honestly? It's nice to have people around you that are both supportive and complimentary. But when it comes to critical thinking, you also want to weave in that, kind of maybe constructive criticism from the standpoint of here's where I'm really seeing the gaps or where it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
Can we iterate on it?
That you got to have the naysayers
You
on
do.
purpose. Give me a negative Nancy all the time.
It's hard because you don't want to listen to them. Your ego gets out in front of that. You're like, I don't want to listen to them, but then
They're the ones
you
that are going to
do.
open it up.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, right. It's a tough one. It's a really tough one. What's your favorite mixer? What is your favorite?
I get
do you
asked.
call it a mixer? Do you call it a juice? Where are we going here with this?
1000% mixer. It's got to
Okay.
be mixed. So we say two things. We say delicious mixers make delicious drinks.
Okay.
So it's a mixer unconditionally. And Fresh Victor is making craft cocktails easy. We're really trying to figure out ways to get you to exactly where you want to go with the end result, where you guys can look at each other and say, man, this is a really good drink. Like, I'm excited to share this with others.
Right. Okay. Okay. What's your favorite? What is your personal go to?
Yeah, that's the tough,
All now.
Sophie's choice thing where they're all right. I get asked this, I swear to you, every other week, and you would think I'd have this just ironclad default response.
Yeah.
With 9 flavors, it's really contingent on mood. How I drink it the most by far these days is because I'm here in home or traveling or whatever else, is probably most likely with sparkling water because it just really shines as a base, and you can do that anytime. I would say some of the more unique things, the prickly pear pomegranate, the cactus pear and pomegranate is just, it's lovely. Like it's such a great flavor profile. But then if you look at the genesis or the base of what we've done from the onset, the Mexican lime and agave, while it may be in many ways basic to the margarita or daiquiri or whatever else, the craft of what we're trying to do is on full display there. It's just, I really love how you get a baseline and you go, oh, wow, this.
Okay. That's interesting. I'll have to keep that in mind if I come across it at any local situation over here.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just send it to you. Yeah,
Okay.
if you guys email me after the show, I'm happy to send you each a variety pack. No
Oh
problem.
my gosh, that'd be great. Yeah.
All
yeah.
9 flavors.
Darren, I think there's a party in our future.
I hope so.
There's so many. I'm just going over. That's what I love. It's like I'm looking at when I went through and looked at all the recipes that you guys currently have, and I'm sure you'll add more. But like this one, this is called the Crushable. Okay, it's your cactus, pear, and pomegranate with sparkling wine.
Mm.
Simple.
Mhm.
Like you could done.
Mhm.
Serve it.
And
Everybody's
you look
happy.
super classy.
Everybody's happy, and they're getting.
Even if you are
fresh
standing there in your
ingredients.
Speedo at the pool.
It enhances the whole situation.
Oh, Jesus. I will never show up again. The only person I want to see in a Speedo at your pool, Lynn, is Tilly. Okay, that's
Okay,
it. That's it.
Okay.
With her
Tilly-
shark fin. That's
Tilly
all
the
I-
dog.
Tilly the dog. That's the only dog. But you mentioned this. I like the fact that all the drinks you're talking about, and you even brought in beer. And you have called the dark and fruity, and it's the same thing. It's beer with cactus and pomegranate that they have.
Yeah.
Why would you? And a darkened, which is a play on a dark and stormy,
Sure.
which is a
Yeah.
rum drink. Oh, I can't wait to start drinking this stuff. It's anybody who asks you, whoa, really? Maybe you should go back. I have lots of cold pressed fruit in this. This is good for
This
my
is good
health.
for your health. Yes. It
Just
is good
because
for your
it's
health.
got alcohol in it.
Clean label.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Good.
You literally, I've got so many questions I want to ask you, Ken, and this thing could just keep going
I
on and
know.
on and on in different places. But so the last thing is anybody can go to the website and order this online and have it shipped to their doorstep, correct?
Correct.
And it will come in at the right temperature
Okay.
and you can use it. And your website is
www.freshvictor.com. And if you go on the shop part of our website, you can curate any bottles. We have 2 sizes. We have kind of the 16-ounce pint, which depending on how you drink, you'll easily get 5 to 7 cocktails out of it. If you're more of a 1-to-1 or 50-50 person, you're going to get a lot more than that. And we have a 64-ounce half-gallon size, which is really meant for the party, right? Like if you're by the pool and you want to batch 20 to 30 cocktails, there you go. We really designed that half-gallon to go with a 750 milliliter or liter bottle of booze, and you just dump and ready to go.
Okay.
And if you're in the restaurant industry or bar industry and they want to get a hold of you, do they go through freshvictor.com as well to get in touch with you?
They absolutely can, and we can talk about dedicated distributors and their geography.
Awesome.
For sure.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Neat. It's really good. Oh, there's hope on this earth, not that crappy mixer stuff.
Oh, we're
Blah.
set. We are.
I'm total snobbing it now when I go to
Can I
Atlanta.
just like subscribe and have this like monthly subscription or weekly subscription show up on my doorstep? Is that the way to do
We're here for you.
it? I'm skipping. We got a
Yeah.
good year ahead of us, Lynn.
Right, we do. We do.
Oh, I wish Fresh Victor would decide to become the one of the official sponsors of the podcast. That would make it even better.
That would be interesting.
We'll talk to you afterwards.
Yeah.
Ken. But anyway, I got to tell you what. Thank you for being on the show today. I hope everything is great out there in the San Fran area. And is there anything else do you have any parting words you would like to leave with our listeners?
Hey, it was a great joy meeting both of you. Thank you so much for having me on. And I just say that, hey, we're in a world where we're just trying to make drinking better for everybody. We're trading up here, and there's nothing better.
Fantastic.
I like that.
Yeah, I do
Alcohol or no alcohol?
too. Yeah,
Everybody's
it's
included.
great.
It's all
Everybody.
inclusive.
It is.
So just buy Fresh Victor.
Kumbaya.
You want to go out on that note?
Yeah, see you guys. Wow, thank you, Ken. This is really interesting.
Awesome.
Have you ever thought about this? Probably wouldn't work with the airlines.